fear almost always was somebody else's fault. And it was easy to say someone else made me afraid. But guilt is one of those where it's you. It's you. Other people may do things and treat you in a certain way that makes you feel that guilt, but ultimately it's you, and that guilt spiral that just keeps going and going and going. And then you get to the point where poor wild man, not poor wild man, he's working on it. He takes guilt and blame for everything. And this is one of those things that I hear often with people who aren't on a personal development journey is, well, it's all my fault. When it's one little thing, oh, everything's my fault. It's always my fault. I do everything wrong. I can do nothing right.
But that's learned.
It is.
Because when he was a kid, I don't know a whole lot about his story beyond what you told me, but when he was a kid, he was very likely told that things were his fault, that were never his fault. That happened to me with my dad. It happened to you and your family dynamic. And so you learn to feel guilty about things that were never your fault because the people that are actually guilty abdicated their guilt and threw it onto you. Like a bleh all over you. That strike a nerve?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm there with you, girl. I think about all the times that I was made to feel guilty about things that I had nothing at all to do with, no control over. If I didn't exist, those things still would have happened. And yet I was the one being blamed for it. And then I was the one made to feel bad about those things. How screwed up is that? Like that is the highest form of narcissism that I can think of, and gaslighting that I can think of. I know we've talked about these topics before, but making someone feel guilty about something they had nothing at all to do with, get that shit out of here. Like, that's gaslighting. That's someone who knows they're doing wrong, but they would rather you feel the pain of their wrongdoing.
Yeah. I'm going to get really vulnerable, guys. So if you're listening, watching, sorry, not sorry, but this is what's required in One Step Deeper. So when everything came out about the stepdad and everything that had happened, I got guilt thrown at me from so many different areas. One was, and all of this was family members. Everybody who ever spoke these feelings to me were family members. My heart's racing. I won't say family members to protect them. Yeah, breathe. One of them straight looked at me in the face and told me to get over it. It happened 3 years ago. And this person refuses to acknowledge that moment happened all these years later. And I've dealt like 15 years. I have sat with that moment. And I'm just like, I know it happened. I know this moment happened, and controlled my life. And I felt so guilty in that moment that I did something wrong, that there was something wrong with me, that I couldn't just get over it. And I went through a whole spiral on that. And then I got it from an opposite end, another family member who I'd love to say, oh, is well-meaning, but no, you for saying this to me. They looked me in the eye and said, well, why didn't you tell us? And I'm like, maybe because I was being manipulated and threatened. Like, but you could have told us and I could have done something about it. And what that moment was they were feeling guilty because they didn't notice it. And instead of dealing with the uncomfortable feelings themselves, they put it on me, the victim. And it's like, dude, what the actual fuck? Like, I'm not even sorry, guys, okay? What the actual fuck were my family members thinking that all of the guilt that they felt about the situation, they couldn't feel it because it is a very uncomfortable emotion, okay? Guilt is very tough to process on your own. But if they had just stopped for a moment and go, I didn't know, I didn't do anything wrong. Now that I know, let's make a change. If they would have done that, then they wouldn't have put all of that internal guilt that they had onto me. And now not only was I dealing with my own guilt around the situation, I was trying to deal with my grandparents' guilt, my mom's guilt, this person's guilt, all this other, like everybody else's guilt was then thrown on me. And now I'm just a pile of like, wait a minute, what do I actually feel bad about? Let me tell you, not a fucking thing. I don't feel bad about anything that happened to me. It sucks that it happened to me, but I didn't cause it. I didn't do anything wrong. I was a 12-year-old child. I didn't wear the wrong thing. I didn't say the wrong thing. I didn't present the wrong way. I didn't do anything wrong. There is nothing for me to feel guilty about. I told my story when I was ready to tell my story, when I could tell my story, when I had the nerve to tell my story. And I don't have to feel guilty that for 3 years I had it on myself.
And you're now telling the whole story in your words, in your book, talking all about it. And even some of the rumblings of people in your family that, what you write. And there's even certain people in your family you're avoiding telling them you have a book, and you don't even name them specifically in the book, don't really say anything about it. But you already know they would try to throw guilt on you about, well, you can't tell that story. And even in my own life, like, and I've written very extensively about this in my own work. A lot of the people on the Moore side of the family totally just ditched me, and they have made me feel like the guilty one for taking an action that was for Jimmy's best interest. And when I decided to no longer be married, they ditched me. And it's like, you threw that guilt on me when I made a choice, by the way, personal choice, none of your damn business family choice. I made a choice that had to happen for me, that was for the best. And now, 3 years later, in hindsight, looking back on it, it was the very right decision to make. But I'm being made to feel guilty about making that choice. And this is the thing, people give you consequences for actions that they don't always know the full context. And so that guilt kind of comes on as a response. So, well, I can't possibly think, you're human and you've got real reasons and you've got feelings and you went one step deeper and you thought these things through. I can't possibly think any of that. No, you're the guilty party. You're cut off. And that's what happens more times than not. And even in this relationship that you have, that you've been describing, you know, this is one that it's just going to be precarious until one side or the other says, hey, wait a minute, I'm going to stop making you feel guilty about what happened. Let's have an honest discussion. Let's be vulnerable with one another. And until that happens, nothing's going to change. And you're always going to be the guilty one.
Yeah. Yeah. This, you know, the black sheep of the family, I believe that they were the ones, yeah, same. They're the ones that realized, wait a minute, I'm not going to accept this guilt. And everybody else, I believed for a long time that I was the scapegoat of the family.
Yes.
People blamed me for things that I couldn't control or that I didn't do, and I took that on. This doesn't just happen with me, and just didn't happen with you. Victims in general, they're like, people often say things like, was said to me, well, why didn't you say anything? Why didn't you do anything? Why? And it's just like, how about instead of saying, why didn't I do anything? How about go to the actual abuser and go, why the fuck did you do that? Like,
Yeah.
it's so complicated. And even on a social stance, you know, we still see it. We still see women being blamed of, well, you wore a skirt that was too short, and so that's why. No, fuck you. How about let's talk to the guy that did that? Like, no, let's talk to those people. But see, you can't see being guilty and like pushing that off to somebody and not feeling it yourself. Like when you actually look at the abuser, it requires a different level of inside of you to stand up to somebody like that. It requires something different than for you to go, well, I feel this and I'm going to make you feel that. It's just like an exchange. Like, you know that you're not responsible for what the abuser did. It's a complicated situation. It's so freaking complicated. But there are times, you said it earlier, there are times when you actually do something wrong. You actually are a human being, you do something wrong, and it is so important, even if you unintentionally hurt somebody, that you apologize. and that you make amends. It is so freaking important to do that. But that, in my opinion, is a fraction of the guilt that this world feels. It is so minuscule.
Although I will say that a lot of people try to assuage that guilt that they feel by doing something that I think is extremely unhealthy. And they just perpetually say, I'm sorry about every situation in life. Da, 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 da. Oh, I'm sorry. Da, da, da. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. My mom is the queen of I'm sorry. I think I've broken her of it because I
Yeah.
called her out on it pretty harshly about it. And it was because she was made to feel guilty by my stepdad, who died 3 years ago, and she's been apart from him now. And she's come to terms with, oh my gosh, how much he manipulated me to feel bad and feel guilty about things that I didn't have anything to do with. So she learned her coping mechanism for the guilt was saying, I'm sorry. And I remember one day when I was visiting her, I'm like, Mom, what are you sorry about? Oh, I don't know. I'm just sorry. Okay, but I'm sorry has meaning if it means something. Otherwise, it's those people who just say, I love you, and it means
Oh,
nothing.
there it is. I was about to say that. That's it.
Yeah,
Mm.
it literally is the same thing. It's just the throwaway line of what you're supposed to say without meaning behind it. And the guilt, here's the thing. You've got fake guilt, and so you assuage it with fake sorrow. If it was real guilt, then you could be sincerely sorry and it would come through more than just I'm sorry as a throwaway line. So you respond fake with fake. So think about that the next time, you guys, that you get somebody that says, I'm sorry. They're only feeling fake guilty when they do it that way.
Do you have an answer for this question? And that is, I am probably not as bad as your mom was, but I still kind of throw out I'm sorry every once in a while. Yes, to you.
But you
What
mean
is
it.
the alternative? What is the alternative to saying sorry for something that you didn't cause?
I got it. I got it. I can't imagine what you're going through.
Yeah.
And that must be so hard. And you've done this to me, by the way. So I'm kind of repeating your own words back to you. I'm so sorry what you're going through. I can't imagine what that feels like. Just know you are okay.
Yeah.
And I'm here for you if you need me. And I am truly, from the bottom of my heart, sincerely sorry that you're going through that. It's better than just, I'm sorry. I know people, when they say I'm sorry, think it covers all the everything, the guilt and everything, but it's a throwaway line. There are no Cliff's notes to being kind and compassionate to somebody going through something that you're feeling guilty about. Enumerate all those words. And Miss Brittany, I'm going to brag on you. As my friend, you have been there many times where you've said almost verbatim all of those words in that order and ending with I'm truly sincerely sorry, because then you set it up with I care about you, I care about I care about you, I care about you, so therefore I'm sorry. If it just comes out I'm sorry, it's just like you're telling me shut up when you just say I'm sorry.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. And see, you brought up earlier with the I love you. Ooh, ooh, I get that one thrown at me. And what it actually means is shut the hell up and feel guilty for saying anything. Because I brought something to somebody's attention recently, and then I got la 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 all this. That's exactly what it was. And at the bottom, I still love you. Nah, fuck off. Fuck off. That is not what we're gonna do. We're not gonna give this long dissertation.
All the steps before the I love you better be supportive of I love you, or the I love you is empty.
It's empty, and all this dissertation worth of crap it, saying I still love you doesn't fix it. And all it did was push feelings of guilt to me that I shouldn't have said anything in the first place.
But the I love you made her feel better and let go of her guilt about all the things she just said about you, he or she said about you. And so that's the thing. Like, people use words, and maybe they do it even subconsciously. I don't think people are that smart, honestly, if I'm being real honest. They don't know they're doing these things, that when they themselves feel guilt, they just want to use words to get
No.
guilt. They don't like the feeling of uncomfortability that comes from being guilty. And so therefore, let's deflect it by, oh, but I still love you, Brittany. Come on. Like, I love you, so you're supposed to forgive me now. You're supposed to reciprocate back. What is wrong with you? Do you not love me? I mean, this happens in family dynamics all the time. A little less so friendships, because if you don't like your friend, you can just ditch their ass and